Imagine this. Midnight under an empty rail bridge, the last train, long gone. The smell of wet asphalt clings to your lungs. You rely on the glow of your phone to stay upright while a lone notification trembles on screen. How have you been? Before you reply, whole sentences whirl through your mind. I'm exhausted. I'm at my limit. I just want someone to hold me. Yet the only words you allow to survive are 3 deceptively neat syllables. I'm fine. In that split second, it feels as if every streetlight around you shatters into glass dust. Your heart exhales beneath a damp blanket, heavy and slow. Somewhere in the attic of your mind, a rooftop alarm blares, but your mouth remains frozen in its showroom smile. Why? Why? When the floor is splintering under your feet, do you instinctively audition for the role of the unbreakable one? Picture a different scene. Suppose an old friend appears beside you, places a gentle hand on your shoulder, and whispers, "It's okay to cry." Would relief flood your body, or would that single sentence send you running? The terror of exposing weakness, the terror of being abandoned, the terror that your value expires the moment you say, "I can't." It is this triad of fears that tightens the straps of the strength mask and, in time, numbs you to the sight of your own bleeding. Now imagine tomorrow dawns with a strange rule. You are forbidden to say, "I'm fine." What would happen to your world? Would you exchange trust for isolation, or inhale freedom for the very first time? Which will rescue the real you, confessed fragility, or curated dignity? Unless you stare that paradox in the eye, you will remain locked inside a prison called pretending to be okay. So do this. Touch, if only in your thoughts, the invisible tape that spells, "I'm fine," across your lips. Feel its cheap adhesive begin to peel. Listen. What voice is desperate to slip through the crack? Hold the answer. You do not need it yet. Because from this moment on, we will descend together into the darkness where that voice has been hiding all along. Pause and consider. Is the phrase, "I'm fine," really your own decision? Or is it a switch flipped by a much larger machine behind you? Borrowing Jung's language, the outer shell of that machine is the persona, while its hidden engine is the shadow. The persona is a showroom window displaying the you society wants. Smiles sit on its shelves like polished products. Anxiety and anger are labeled defective and shipped to storage. Yet the storage room, your shadow, never sleeps. Freud's defense mechanisms patrol it like a canine unit, fastening 5 leashes around every unruly feeling. Denial, repression, rationalization, projection, reaction formation. Anger is rebranded as righteousness. Jealousy is airbrushed into ambition. Sadness is locked in a cage called personal responsibility. You believe you're controlling emotion, but in truth, emotion is using the set called apparent calm to wriggle backstage. Why has such a labor-intensive system survived for generations? Culture preaches endurance is virtue. Education applauds the skill of reading the air. Corporate life pays salaries and titles to self-sacrifice. In Japanese, the blade named Amaeru na, don't cling, slices sharp, while the invisible cage called Meiwaku Okakeru na, don't cause trouble, confines silently. Blade and cage together tune your heart into an instrument perfectly calibrated for collective convenience. But is the melody that instrument plays truly yours? Nietzsche warned that the morality of the herd is the invention of the weak. If you keep choosing to fit in through simulated strength, you gradually give away the right to steer your own life. The moment you entrust your soul to the persona, the shadow grows in the basement, waiting to break through the floor. Then, wrapped in the garb of reason, you will experience the explosion as sudden panic, motiveless exhaustion, or unprovoked hostility toward others. Here lies a paradox. The better a person you try to be, the darker and wilder the shadow you cast inside. And the only way to dissolve that shadow is not by ignoring it, but by lighting it up. Yet to shine that light is to face yourself with no costume, no script. Are you ready to stand under such a glare? Listen. The door to the basement is already creaking. In the next chapter, we'll trace the cold draft slipping through its cracks and watch how the shadow quietly rewrites your fate. Inside the darkness, what will you find? The shadow never makes a sound. On the jam-packed morning train, it whispers in your ear. Don't bother anyone. When your boss shoots you a frosty glance, it murmurs from the pit of your stomach. Show weakness here and you're finished. The shadow seizes your vocal cords and forces your mouth to recite lines society prefers. You think you are choosing, yet you are merely running a pre-programmed reflex loop. Picture the evening. You return home late, stare at a blank face in the mirror, and feel a weight with no name. Neuroscientists note that suppressing emotion drains enormous resources from the prefrontal cortex, eroding focus and judgment hour after hour. Your low productivity is not proof of laziness. It is evidence that buried feelings are siphoning off energy. Now zoom out to the workplace. When personas converse with other personas, nothing authentic is exchanged, and misunderstandings accumulate in silence. Cognitive biases, projection above all, multiply. You misread your own anger as their aggression. Your colleague interprets your quiet as indifference. A team's bond fractures, not by shouted arguments, but by unspoken fatigue. The corporate mantra of psychological safety often rests on a thin sheet of ice, made from everyone's "I'm fine." Widen the lens again. At the level of national policy, success markers such as GDP and stock indices hypnotize decision-makers into downplaying the nation's mental health shadow. Demand for psychiatric care soars, yet budgets inch upward only marginally. Invisible costs are deferred to future generations, while the collective persona idolizes perpetual growth and ignores the anxiety swelling inside. Eventually, the shadow takes numeric form, falling happiness rankings, rising youth suicide rates, and can no longer be ignored, and the individual absorbs those currents. You sink into the sofa on the weekend, scroll videos until time dissolves, and mutter, "I don't know what I want anymore." This is not absence of will, but over-defended will. Your real desires are chained, and the moment you try to move, pain shoots through the links. The unconscious decides that stillness is the safest strategy. Apathy becomes armor. The wound inside is deeper than any blow from outside. So I ask you, am I truly choosing my life? Or am I letting the shadow hold the controls while I enjoy the illusion of agency? Refuse to confront this question, and your future drifts toward a statistical average, sliding neatly onto a preset track. In the next chapter, we will jolt that track off course, the first spark of rebellion. What does it take to flood the shadow with light and tear the persona's fabric? Is the shackle around your ankle forged by the world, or can it be melted from the inside out? Are you ready to find out? From here on, staring at the shadow is no longer enough. It is your turn to rattle the bars and kick the door open. Be warned, the feel-good slogans of positive thinking and quick mood fixes only stroke the shadow's fur. They do not cut chains. To loosen real iron, you must first pick up an unusual weapon called self-compassion. Self-compassion is not feel-good self-indulgence, nor a cheap booster shot of self-esteem. It is the act of embracing the shadow not as an enemy, but as a lost child returning home. Jung called this the work of integration, light shaking hands with darkness, not light defeating it. The anger and grief that froze inside you are renamed as forces that once protected you. In that instant, the shadow drops its claws and begins to feed you energy in the form of creativity instead of aggression. Next, you need a series of tiny counterintuitive moves. The moment you feel a confession lodging in your throat, text a friend, "I might be at my limit today." When you start to apologize without eye contact, raise your gaze and say, "I could really use help." The key is not size, but quality of deviation. Shift your daily pattern by a single millimeter, and your neural circuitry starts mapping new possibilities. History backs you up. Nietzsche drafted "Thus Spoke Zarathustra" while his body was collapsing. Schubert composed "Death and the Maiden" from a sickbed. They converted the weight of the shadow into fuel. You can do the same. Anger becomes the courage to draw boundaries. Fear becomes an insight that sees around corners. Emptiness becomes the white space that forces creation. Rebellion, however, carries the scent of loneliness. People around you may step back, puzzled. You're different lately. Good. That awkward distance proves you are standing outside the cage. Adler reminds us that true community feeling is born not from conformity, but from contribution. The minute you integrate your shadow and hug someone with your whole truth, the act becomes a lighthouse that throws light onto their own submerged darkness. So let me ask, what tiny heresy will you commit tonight? Will you turn a pent-up sigh into an audible sentence? Dial the call you have been postponing for months? Or stand before a mirror, say your own name, and whisper, "You can stop hiding now." Whatever the gesture, one step invites the next, and the chain falls link by link. And in the final chapter ahead waits the ultimate truth, the shape of the strength you have been hunting all along. Shadow and light melted into one alloy, ready to find out what it actually looks like. Picture the hush just before dawn. The city still sleeps, air taut like a held breath. At that moment, seconds before the sun ignites the horizon, the world falls utterly silent. The same silence visits your inner landscape the instant the persona sets down its script and the shadow drops its chains. No fear, no euphoria, only a pristine blank space stretches within. What will you paint on that space first? Most people sprint toward goals or success images. Yet what you truly need is a question, not an answer. Not "Who am I?" but "What am I feeling?" A question that starts with the raw tremor of sensation rather than a business card or title. Then you realize anger, sadness, joy, all rise from the same root energy, wearing different labels. In this instant, you taste what Nietzsche called amor fati, the love of fate. Past pain no longer weighs you down. It becomes raw material you can embrace. Only now does genuine strength reveal itself, not never breaking, but breaking, bending, changing form, and standing again. Fluid like water, not rigid like iron. Schopenhauer lamented that life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. But if you seize the fulcrum, the sway itself transforms into rhythm. Your shadow becomes the tribal drum, your persona, the melody. The harmony they weave will never be perfect, Its slight dissonance is precisely what makes the timbre uniquely yours. So ask yourself one last time, which emotion will I give a seat at my table today? Will you scribble out your anger on a page, set your sadness to music, fold your joy into a letter for a friend? Offering each feeling a chair and a conversation allows shadow and light to complete a single circle. That circle is the true outline of you, impossible for anyone else to duplicate. Tomorrow, when someone asks again, "Are you okay?" how will you answer? Perhaps you will say, "I'm still wavering, and that's me." Not a confession of weakness, but a new language of strength available only to the reconciled. Dawn arrives. Your shadow still stretches across the ground, yet now it aligns with the direction of the light. You understand. The shadow can never be erased, but you can choose to walk beside it. And the cadence of that walk is what will make your story utterly unrepeatable. Take a deep breath. When the quiet signal inside your chest sounds, step forward. The mask that says, "I'm fine," is no longer required. By embracing both shadow and light, you become the torch that will illuminate the path ahead.